Today I'm at Unique Machine Repair in Elburn, Illinois. I'll be talking with Brandon, who is owner-operator of this company. We'll be talking all about the industry and what it takes to be a machine repairman. This is Behind the Job. All right, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell me what you do?
Thanks for having us. I'm Brandon Bayer, owner and operator of Unique Machine Repair Incorporated, Elburn, Illinois.
And how long have you been doing this type of work for, machine repair?
I started doing this kind of work when I was 15 in vocational machine shop in high school and just progressed from there. So this year, 35 years.
Good for you.
Yeah.
And you started owning this business in 2020, right?
2019.
2019? Okay. So before then, take me through exactly what kind of jobs you were doing. Were you doing more union jobs, more, is this all machine repair jobs?
Everything that I've done since I got out of high school, with the exception of a couple of smaller time jobs. I worked at a car dealership, stuff like that. And I worked at a motorcycle dealership. I got into machine assembly at a union shop in Lisle. And then shortly after that, I went right into the stamping industry and started working maintenance over there. That was a non-union shop. And had an opportunity to go to work on big iron, big stamping presses up in the automotive industry. And that was a union shop. And I worked there for 4 years before I came to Unique Machine Repair.
And that was in what year?
I came here in 2000.
Okay. So you've been working here, and then you started taking ownership in 2019. That was right before COVID.
Yeah.
So how did that affect your business?
So COVID was, I'm sure it scared everybody as much as it scared me. You're a new business owner, and all of a sudden, the governor of Illinois decides he's going to shut everybody down. He starts scaring everybody. You can't drive on the road, this and that, blah, blah, blah. We need to flatten the curve and all the BS they started with that. And as a new business owner, I've always been a go-getter and trying to push the limits. And when you're in the wheelhouse and you're driving this thing, you just invested everything in your life into purchasing a business. You can't let that happen. So I was very, very firm on, if he wants to find me or he wants to shut me down, come with it, because I'm not stopping what I'm doing. And for us, as sad as it sounds, COVID was a really good thing for us, primarily because our customer base still needed the machines done, but they were as scared as everybody else. So they didn't want us in their facility, potentially endangering their employees. So they would take the machinery, put it on trucks, send it here. So my guys were safe working in the shop amongst themselves. But no, COVID was a blessing for us, because the customers needed their stuff done, and all of a sudden machines are showing up in droves. I mean, we had trucks here almost every day that were unloading. It was like, where are we going to put all this stuff? We got to work on it. And our guys were busy. I mean, we were working a lot of overtime during COVID, and it was like, okay, this thing that was so scary really wasn't so scary for me. I'm like, we're doing all right. But the scariest thing was when the governor said he was going to shut us down. And then when he came out in his press conference and said, well, electricians and plumbers are essential workers. Okay, you opened the door, I'm essential, because I'm keeping manufacturing running. So that's what we did. We wrote on that and said, good luck trying to shut us down now. Yeah. If an auto mechanic is essential and a plumber is essential, so are we, because those machines that we're fixing keep people working. So take me through what you guys do day to day, your day to day, in the field, and what you do here at the shop. How many fleet vehicles do you have? How many employees? So currently we employ 11 people, okay? And of the 11 people, I've got 7 fleet vehicles that are field service trucks. So our journeymen run those trucks, and then we've got 2 delivery vehicles as well. But our day-to-day, we come in, we start the day with coffee, and we have our briefing in the morning with our people. This guy's going on this job, he needs help. This guy's going with you, blah, blah, blah. And it all depends on what the customer is asking for. It may be a machine inspection, where we go and we break down the machine, with measuring devices like dial indicators, feeler gauges, et cetera, to check the machine for excessive clearance, et cetera, et cetera. We want to make sure the machine is within industry standards and specifications and that it's safe to operate. Our electricians do complete controls as well as troubleshooting. So they may be out on a troubleshooting job, or they may be out on a complete press control install. So it just depends on the call and the workload. We might be working on clutches and brakes. We might be working on tearing down a press because the bearings are worn out. So if that's the case, then it's usually 2 guys on a job, sometimes 3, depending, and we use heavy equipment to pull those machines down depending on the size of the machine. So then there's a briefing on who's operating, who's certified to operate this equipment, et cetera, et cetera. Some jobs, we have to go into confined spaces. So then, we check everybody's confined space training as far as date, et cetera, and okay, you need to be retrained, so you're not going on that job, that guy's going on a job, blah, blah, blah. So sometimes we work at high elevation, sometimes we work in confined spaces, but the day-to-day it changes. We may have parts that are in here that just need to be machined. We've got raw material, so okay, go size up what you need, get on a lathe, get on a mill, whatever, and we start cutting. We try to keep everything as consistent as possible. In our industry, a lot of the machinery that we work on is old, and the documentation might not be there. So now we have to take a look at what this part should have looked like versus what it does look like, and recreate it from there. So
yeah, most people when they see your logo or hear unique machine repair, they might think that you're working on like appliances or even like big dozers, but it seems like you guys work on what exactly what kind of machines do you work on then?
Well, we work on tool room equipment like mills, lathes, and grinders, but primarily we work on stamping presses. That's our bread and butter. So there's not a lot of people that do that scope of work anymore. Either they don't have the knowledge, they haven't been experienced to it, or they're just intimidated by it. But we work on anything. If it's got shafts, gears, or bearings, that's what we work on. We don't do washing machines or stoves or appliances like that. I've had phone calls. Do you work on pinball machines? Do you work on slot machines? Do you work on one lady asked if we worked on a jukebox, and I'm like, I'll take a look at it, but that's not what we do. But aside from that, I mean, we have done fabrication and machining on earth moving equipment before. It depends on what the customer needs. Mm-hmm. We've completely rebuilt large scale power transmissions for the metal spinning industry, and we work on stuff in the medical industry, food service, agriculture, primarily manufacturing for all of that. But we work on stamping presses, roll mills, any metalworking equipment.
That's very cool.
We've also worked on stuff for local butchers. They have these meat elevators, and okay, well, the bearings went out on this thing. Okay, we can take care of that. Okay, now we're working on something for food service, so it's got to be spotless because it's all stainless steel, and we got to make sure when it leaves here it isn't contaminated, and then it's up to them to make sure it's not contaminated when it goes into their facility. But
yeah, and you guys are kind of a niche in the trades, because not only do you do the troubleshooting and the repairs, like you said, but you also do some electrical work too, and some welding and fabrication, like you said.
We have electricians that are certified, and they do complete motor controls, press controls. It's not a pipe and wire situation. It's more intricate than that. Relay logic, PLC logic, and then we do a lot of welding. We do pneumatics, hydraulics. Some of the machines that we deal with are very complex, where they have a mechanical aspect, an electrical aspect, a pneumatic aspect, and a hydraulic aspect to it. So you have multiple systems within one machine. Mm-hmm. And we have to be able to take care of all of it. So there's a lot of training associated with that. There's a lot of, you've never seen this before, come with me. I need to show you how this works. So when you encounter this in the field, you can grasp the concept of what this component of the machine is doing. So it's kind of wild.
Yeah.
You know, we also do lubrication systems for machinery as well. And those can be pretty complex depending on the machine. Some stuff can be really, really intricate when it gets down to timing and metering lubrication, timing and metering hydraulics, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of training associated with that, and that all happens here in-house.
So out of your 11 employees, you have 7 fleet vehicles, so 7 journeymen?
Currently, I've got 6 journeymen, and we've got helpers that are working their way through apprenticeships that we do in-house here.
So your helpers or apprentices.
Yeah.
Take me through what their role is in this job, and how they start, how they get into it.
Well, we kind of throw them in deep, deeper than any of the apprenticeships that I've overseen in the past. We'll take a new guy, and after he's gone and passed all his training and certifications, because that's the first thing that we do here as far as safety. You know, you get your forklift training, you've got ladder and fall protection.
OSHA 40, do you need?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, we do confined space and hoist and lifting and all that, lockout, tag out. Once we've gotten through all of that, then it's okay. We've seen, obviously, part of the forklift training is seeing how you can operate a forklift, and then from there, if we need to train them on something heavier, you know, a larger lift like a Versa lift or something like that, then we do that. And then we can take that guy and say, okay, yeah, you can operate now. We're going to have you go work with this journeyman. You're going to operate today, and you get a better assessment of how that's coming apart. But typically, the helpers and the apprentices, they're with the journeyman for a reason. They're out there to learn and to be an extra set of hands. The journeyman is the lead on the job at that point, but those guys need to be exposed to it. And you're not necessarily going to get exposed to everything here in-house, because we may be working on components to a machine here versus the entire machine out in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Some equipment is just, some of the equipment we work on is just too big to ship here. They're not going to disassemble a 2,500 ton press and ship it here, but because it stands 40 feet tall above ground and 12 feet in the hole. So we're going out in the field, and we've got to take whatever we can off that machine, bring it back here, fix it, and then get that back out. And some of that stuff barely fits in here. Some of those components barely fit in here, you know. But that's the nature of our business. Some of the machines we work on are real small, you know. They're not much bigger than a sewing machine, and other stuff is bigger than your house.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, it all depends. What's the average age of your journeymen and apprentices?
It depends. It all depends on the individual and what they were exposed to. I got my journeyman card, I was 22 years old, but that's because I came right out of high school and I was in it, and I was in it for the long haul. Typically, your apprenticeship is 4 years, 8,000 hours plus schooling. Okay, so an average 40-hour work week comes out to 2,000 hours. So 4 years, you got 8,000 hours on job. And when I served my apprenticeship, I took a pay cut to serve the apprenticeship. So I went from $11 an hour to $9 an hour. I took a $2 an hour pay cut, but I knew that was going to come back, and it was going to come back really, really fast. I had my hours, my 8,000 hours, just over 3 years because of all the overtime that I had worked. So the hours weren't an issue. I just had to finish all the classes that the company had sent me to.
Yeah, sometimes you got to take one step back to go 2 forward, you know?
Exactly. But then you get your card, and all of a sudden there's an $8 an hour raise because now you've got your card. We expect this from you. And okay, that's fine.
You're going like 5 steps forward now.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I went from 9 and 17. Great. I'll take that. I'll take it. Yeah. Okay. So I suffered a little bit, you know, respect the process because that's what it is.
How about your journeyman? How old have you seen some of these guys in this field?
Huh. I've seen guys work clear through their 70s. I really have. One guy said to me one time, he says, we don't see many machinists and machine rebuilders over the age of 50. Really? I don't know what shops you've been in. I mean, we had a machinist here that when he retired, I don't think he wanted to. I really don't. He loved his job too much. He would complain every day, but you could see the pride he took in his work, that he loved what he did. And when he finally retired, I think he was 71, and he didn't want to retire. But it was time. I mean, his body was tired just because. But, and to tell you the truth, I miss him. I really do. I miss him every day. He was great. He was great. And he was probably one of the best machinists I ever seen.
How in demand are you guys for work? And what's your competition like? And because we're in the Midwest, we're suburbs of Chicago. You guys get a lot of work from Chicago and other big
Absolutely.
cities.
In fact, we have a couple of city contracts as well, but we travel all over the Midwest and even down south. I've got a customer in Texas. I've got a customer in New Hampshire. The majority of it is right here in the Chicagoland area, and that's, you know, the way we like it for the most part. I mean, that's how we pay our bills. Competition-wise, I think my closest competitor is probably 40 miles away. And the next closest competitor is probably about 70. So as far as, there's other machine repair shops out there. There's other guys that are doing what we do, but they're not doing it to the scale that we are, or the volume that we are. And we see what people have tried to do when we get the call and we come out there and we're like, okay, this was not handled the right way. We'll go ahead and we'll take it back. We'll fix it the right way, kind of thing. So our competition is not very big. We are, you know, we're one of the few that's still doing it. And there's a lot of stamping houses here in Illinois that still need it. People say, oh, manufacturing is leaving Illinois, blah, blah, blah. We've seen some of that, but not to the scale that everybody's talking about. I mean, my customer base is huge. Again, we've got customers that supply global power. We've got customers that supply agriculture as far as machinery, like combines and tractors, stuff like that. We've got customers that are running automotive manufacturing parts, components. I've got 6 customers doing work for Tesla right now, and in different scales. You know, some are doing car parts, some are doing their solar panels, you know, stuff like that. I've got a customer that does food service. They do all the aluminum. Actually, 2 customers that do aluminum foil pans, and not just the domestic stuff you buy at the grocery store, but you go to get your fast food and you flip it over and there's their logo, you know, and it's, oh, wow, they're selling that, you know, and it's a big chain. You know,
and you're repairing these machines.
And we're repairing the machines that are running their product. So we've got customers that do medical, and they do, you know, like one customer does epidural cats, you know, these big needles that they're putting in people's bags. So
and you see that being done too, right?
Yeah, I've got a customer that does garage doors, you know, big commercial garage doors. So, I mean, without name dropping anybody, I mean, people can read through the lines on what I'm talking about. So it's really, really neat. And then again, we have contracts with different municipalities for different equipment that needs to be machined. So we do that. So as far as the customer base is very, very diverse. And as far as the competition, it's small. It really is. So we do pretty good. We're not running around begging for work. It's here every day. There's always something coming in, and, you know, thank God. But we've been very blessed with that.
And how in demand are you for workers?
I'm always looking to hire people. I really am. It's a matter of, you know, do they want to take on a job like this, because it is a roughneck job. We kind of get a little arrogant about it, because not only do we machine stuff, but we're heavy mechanics as well. So we're not in a spotless machine shop like some tool makers are in machine shops. And I've been in those shops. I worked in those shops where everything is meticulously clean and everything else. No, we get dirty. And we work in the heat, we work in the cold, and we work in elevated positions. And we've machined parts on a machine, or we've actually line board, stuff like that, that some tool makers would be like, I ain't doing that. You know, they want to get on their small mill, or they want to get on their 6x12 grinder, and they want to do that stuff. Well, we work on big stuff, heavy stuff. And it's got to be clean before it goes in the machine so that we can, you know, take our measurements and make our cuts. So we got to get all that grease and grime off of there before we go and put it in the machine.
And you as an owner work on some of those, you know, jobs.
Absolutely. I am not above the lowest job there is. I've worked in press pits. I've cleaned press. I was in the press pit this week, changing an oil pump. And whatever it takes to get the job done, that's what we're going to do. I've mopped my own floors here, you know what I mean? Because an area needs to be cleaned up. And when you're done with the job, you got to clean your area up. You know, I've dumped scrap barrels, the whole 9 yards. No one's above the lowest job in the shop. Nothing's punishment. It's whatever it takes to get the job done.
You take pride in your work.
Absolutely.
All you guys, right?
Absolutely. I think every tradesman does, really. It doesn't matter if you're a welder, a plumber, or you're a machinist, or a mechanic. I think any tradesman, anybody who's invested the time into themselves, I honestly believe that they're very proud of the work they put out. And because you're literally autographing your work, you know, right there. You're putting your name on it.
You're making something. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what's so fulfilling about the work that we do is at the end of the day, you can say, hey, man, I don't know if anybody else could have done what I pulled off, you know? And that's the reward in itself. I mean, the money's great, don't get me wrong. And the fact that we do field service, you know, the scenery changes. You're not looking at the same machines every day.
You're not in an office 9 to 5.
Yeah, you're not shining a chair with your ass. You know, that's, I mean, unfortunately, as an owner, I have to do that, you know, so many hours a day. But the coolest thing about what we do is, okay, we're not working on one type of machine, you know,
or going to one place every
right.
Thursday.
I mean, well, there are times where there's multiple breakdowns, and it's like, okay, I just spent 3 weeks at so and so's, you know. And it happens, but and we've had guys that were camped out at companies for years because they needed the support. You know, we're talking about huge scale companies. There was a time where we had 4 guys. We were much bigger, and we had 4 guys that were dedicated to one customer here in the Chicagoland area. They went there every day. So, and they're helping them with their day-to-day operation, inspections, repairs, et cetera.
So for that kid that's out of high school and he or she is just thinking, man, like college, I don't know if this is right for me. How can you pitch this industry well to that person?
As controversial as it is, I mean, I went to junior college as part of my apprenticeship and everything else, so I got it. You know, I mean, went for my associates, the whole 9 yards, and that helped me along with my apprenticeship as well. At the end of the day, you know, doing this kind of work, I raised 2 families, you know, and people said, you know, how's that work out for you? Well, my kids eat really, really good. My wife's got really, really nice shoes. You know, I mean, the bills are paid, and we do all right, you know, and we take care of our guys because they take care of us. And that's the way it is. The one thing that I pride myself in is the fact that, okay, I'm an owner, but I came from the bench, so I didn't forget where I came from. And I think at times, some business owners, they lose scope of that. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it takes an employee to come to them and say, hey, did you forget where you came from? Because, you know, now you're this, and you're not taking care of us. And we like to make sure we take care of our guys. And we put pretty competitive packages together for them for that reason. But yeah, as far as out of high school, I would definitely say that if you don't have a fixed direction where you know you're going to be a vet. You know you got a bunch of medical school you got to go to. You're going to be a doctor. That's different. You're going to be a nurse. That's different. But if you're just going to college to get a degree, well, what are you getting a degree in? What do you really want to do? Well, I don't know what I want to do. Why don't you go to work? Okay, and then figure it out from there, because maybe you can go to a junior college at night while you're working, making money, instead of going to a 4-year university and burning up mommy and daddy's money, and then you graduate with a boatload of debt you can't pay back. I've seen it, and I laugh. It's like all those people that look down on me for going to vocational machine shop, and I think I'm doing pretty good,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that college is bad. It's not for everybody.
Everyone has to find their own invest
Absolutely,
their time and
absolutely.
money.
And there are certain, career paths that require that kind of education. I get it, man. You don't walk out of high school and become a lawyer. No, you gotta go to college. You gotta pass the bar. All that. So I get that, and believe me, everybody needs lawyers. Nowadays.
Doctors, engineers, all the STEM majors,
Exactly. But yeah, it's just not for everybody. So if college isn't for you, man, get in a trade, and it doesn't matter what trade it is, get in there, because all the trades are hiring. You don't believe the hype. Everybody is looking for people.
Especially young kids too.
Yeah, because the older people retire. The guys who've been in the industries, in all the industries, they're retiring, or they die, whatever. And you need the younger guys to start from the bottom, work their way up, respect that process, or the industry that you're talking about, that you're working in, it will die. Somebody's going to take that job. So, why not take it for yourself? Be the best that you can be, put some pride into your work, invest in yourself, and make some money.
It should be a good thing to be, even for me, I'm in the younger generation, and seeing these older people start to want to retire, there's all these job openings.
And you see it everywhere. And it's unfortunate, because the longer you're in an industry, the more you lose track of time, and by that I mean, I've got a guy that works for me that he used to work with me, okay? And then when I bought the business, now he's my employee. And it's like, we've really been working together 15 years, okay, that's pretty cool, and in that, it's, oh man, he's 67 years old. We don't want to lose him, but that's, natural sequence of events, and it's like, I tease him all the time. You better not be retiring on me, that kind of stuff. Because number one, we love having him around, but number two, he's a great asset to the company. So it's real easy to fall into that, where the days run into each other, and next thing you know, it's, what do you mean you're retiring? Well, I'm 65. Oh, we got to replace him, because he's leaving. He's going down the road. He's going to enjoy the rest of his life, and that's cool. That's what he worked for. I need somebody to fill his shoes. So we need a younger guy to come fill his shoes, And unfortunately, there are times where we see that void, where we're not getting the 18, 19, 20-year-olds. So we definitely want to see those younger guys, and again, if college isn't their thing, my door is open. I've never turned away a walk-in. I've never overlooked a resume. I look at everything that comes through, whether it comes through the, your typical employment engines, whether it be, Indeed or Glassdoor, all those, ones, ZipRecruiter, or somebody just decided to, drop off a resume. I've had that, and I don't overlook any one of them, because everybody's got some asset that may be usable for me. And if that's the case, and I interview a lot of people, and some people just, they get intimidated by what they see we work on, and they're like, okay, that's not for me. Okay, fine. Good luck to you.
And what do you like to see out of those applicants?
Well, one of the things that I like to see is, I mean, on the younger guys, you're not going to see it, but on the older people that, and by older I mean the people that are in their 30s or in their 40s that are handing me a resume. I want to see tenure. I don't want to see a guy that has jumped from job to job to job. He's at this job 1 year, he's at this job 6 months. It makes me question how much effort am I going to put into this individual before he takes what I taught him and goes down the road? You know, we call it a gypsy effect, and that's some guys advocate to that. There's guys in this industry that advocate to that. They're like, well, the only way you get better is to go different places, and that may be true for some people, but that's not what we want. We want somebody we want this to be their last stop, even if it's their first stop. You know, I'd love to have a guy that came right out of high school, 18 years old, started here and retires from here. Because if he's retiring from here, I'm probably going to be dead and gone. And maybe he's taking that over. And that's cool. And then the company just keeps rolling generation after generation. That's awesome. If you're a business owner in a small company like we are, okay, and as attached as we are to our employees, you wind up a part of their lives. Even, employee comes to you, man, I'm having a really hard time, my kids, this and that, blah, 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 or I'm going through a divorce, whatever, or, close family member passed away. We got compassion for that. And you become part of those people's lives. I mean, there's guys that, they're on vacation and they come in to pick up their paycheck and they got their kids with them and you meet their kids and there's an attachment there, you know what I mean? And it's cool. Whereas, bigger corporations, you don't have that personability. So
kind of just a number on their list.
Yeah. A lot of time, and a lot of things get lost in the shuffle because there's just too many people. So.
But I guess the bigger difference is between the big companies and the smaller companies. Everybody talks about pay. What can a person out of high school make as an apprentice helper starting out here, and then 5 years down the line as a journeyman, and 10 years down the line?
Well, it all depends on the individual. We start guys anywhere from, depending on where they're at. I've started guys as low as $18 an hour. I've started guys that were even higher because of their aptitude and what they brought to the table because of what they did in high school. So it just depends. Typically, coming to work here, you're starting out about just under 40 grand a year, about 39.5 a year, not including the other benefits that we have. So one of the things that we do that a lot of companies do is we pay our employees insurance entirely. Nothing comes out of their check. So I don't know a lot of companies that do that. Now, a single guy, that's the equivalent of about $5.50, $6 an hour. A guy who has a wife and kids, it's like an $11 an hour raise because I'm paying for all of that. Okay, so a lot of companies don't do that. Okay, I'm paying you $20 an hour, and after your probationary period, I'm putting you on the insurance. That's not coming out of your check. Okay, and you're like, I'm making $20 an hour and I got insurance. Instead of, what is this $176 a week coming out of my check for insurance? So, and we have a boot allowance because guys are required to wear steel toes here. So we got a boot allowance. We offered that. And
how does overtime work?
Overtime is after 8, after 40. Okay, so I pay time and a half after 8, after 40, after 12 in a given day is double time. Okay, and I'm not required to do that by the state of Illinois. But again, I remember where I came from. So a Saturday, if you've worked your scheduled hours and you work a Saturday for me, okay, the first 8 hours is time and a half. If you're required to work 10 or 12 hours, anything after that 8th hour is double time. If we work a Sunday because a customer can only shut the machine down on a Sunday, it's all double time. And what a lot of people don't know is here in Illinois, you're only required to pay time and a half for hours after 40. So if you find a company that's paying double time, that's not a requirement. Whereas in a lot of union shops, it's part of the contract. And I worked those shops, so I understood that. I also understood that the one union that I was in, part of our contract was the seventh day and any day thereafter without the opportunity for a day off was double time. So if you worked Sunday, if you worked Monday all the way through the week and you worked Sunday, Sunday was double time. But if you had to go back to work on Monday and they weren't going to give you an opportunity for a day off, that was double time per contract. So I operate the same way because I know what it's like to work, 12 or 14 days straight. All right, I've sacrificed being with my family. I've sacrificed my fun time and this and that. Where's the reward in that? What are you doing for me? Well, I'm paying you. I'm paying you a lot because I need you here and you need to work. And I understand you had to sacrifice your entire weekend. You didn't get to go to, your daughter's softball game. You didn't go to your son's football game, whatever. I'm gonna compensate you for that. So that's how we do it. The state has their regulations, but we're kind of a little bit above that.
Is this an industry that you can make six figures in down the line?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I did for a number of years. It's how bad do you want it? And I mean, obviously there's overtime involved, but you take those jobs, if you got bills to pay, you take every hour you can get, and for me, there was a time when, my finances were not where I needed them to be. And the only way I was going to change that is to work. So I took every available hour there was, and it didn't matter if we were on a short week, because of a holiday or whatever. A lot of guys would be like, well, I'm not going to work Saturday because, Monday's a holiday and I won't get my overtime. So it'll be straight time on Saturday. I don't care. I want the hours. I got to eat. I got to make money, and I did that. And I think that anybody can go as far as they want to go. People limit themselves. People have always limited themselves, and then they complain about it. And there was just no room for that with me. It was like, okay, I have a problem. I can fix it with money, and go to work. And I think that's pretty much where my attitude and my opinion toward the guy out of high school that isn't sure about college and this and that, go grab a trade because you can make a lot of money as long as you want to work. And there's going to be days when you're tired and there's going to be days when you're sore, but your body will recover. Go work.
Make something of yourself.
Yeah. Rather than being a leech on society or
a consumer.
Yeah. Obviously, if you have disposable income, then you become more of a consumer. So in that respect, I can go buy that new truck. I can go buy that big TV. I can buy that stereo system. Whatever, whatever makes you happy. You go buy a boat, you go buy a motorcycle, whatever.
Have you seen some of your employees buy houses? And
I actually had a young guy that came to work for me, had no background in this industry whatsoever. And in under 2 years, he actually bought his own house because he took every hour he could because he wasn't happy living in the apartment. He wasn't happy being a renter. So he put his nose to the grindstone and he worked any hours I'd give him. And next thing you know, hey, I got to leave work early on Tuesday. Okay, what's going on? I'm closing on my house. Awesome. Fantastic. Here's a guy, he's, I think he's going to be 25 now. He's got his own house. That's pretty cool. And he's had his house for a while. And, I go buy a car, because I need a car. Okay, cool. You have the wherewithal to do that because you work and you make money And I think a lot of people, and it's not just a younger generation. I think a lot of people they get lost in somebody has to give me something. Why don't you go earn it? Because if you earn it, you're going to have a lot more pride toward whatever that is, and you're going to take better care of it, and it just snowballs into a better life and a better being a better person, a contributor to society versus somebody who's a leech. So there's a lot to be said about that, and you and I have spoke before, and like I said, I don't think there's a single tradesman out there that doesn't take pride in every aspect of what's going on. Whether it's just his job, he takes pride in his work, he takes pride in his house, he takes pride in his vehicles, everything else. And every tradesman has a little bit of swagger to themselves, a little bit of arrogance and everything, and rightfully so. They earned it, they deserve it, and and like I said, I don't know a single tradesman that doesn't have a little bit of arrogance and a little swagger to them because they know that they invested in themselves and they earned it. There's nothing wrong with that.
They do some badass work too.
Yeah, I mean every trade does. I mean, you can go on the internet and you can see these welders that just do these amazing figure 8 TIG welds and stuff like that, and then you see these guys that are iron workers that are up on structural, and you're like, dude, they're 600-700 feet above deck, one slip and it's over, right? But they're up there and they're welding, and that's cool. That's cool as hell. And then we go and bring in a 1,000-ton press crown and rebuild it, and it's pretty cool because when that machine runs, man, that big iron, it runs smooth as silk. The trades are always a great avenue for anybody, male, female, doesn't matter, because America's got to keep turning. This country has to keep turning, and that's the only way it's going to. So like I said before, you can't be above the lowest job that's out there. You get into trades, you're gonna do that job that nobody wants to do. You hated it as a helper, but that was kind of your initiation kind of thing. Well, now you're a journeyman, and I don't have a helper today. Well, I guess I'm doing that, because it's got to get done first. So, I mean, it is what it is. But hard work pays dividends. It does, especially working for the right company.
You've shared your thoughts on a bachelor's degree, but what about an associate's? What about the trade schools?
So it depends. I mean, if somebody's going to school for their associates, like say in associates in applied science for manufacturing, that's excellent because I know the curriculum. I got my associates in the same. So there's going to be technical mechanics in there. There's going to be, metallurgy and machine shop in there, and some welding and some drafting and all that works here. So there's absolutely nothing wrong. And that's why I praise the junior colleges, because it's an affordable way to get an education so that you can be a little bit higher as far as your education level without going into the poorhouse. And don't get me wrong, the junior colleges have gotten more and more expensive, but it's still cheaper than going to a state school.
What about the trade schools?
Unfortunately, the trade schools are falling off. They're still
in the Midwest, would you say, or everywhere?
I would say, well, I wouldn't say in the Midwest per se, but I would say in Illinois. I mean, we don't hear about the trade schools as much anymore because the funding isn't there. So that falls back on our state government, in my opinion. I wish there was more trade schools. I wish that there were more opportunities for people to get an education in a given trade. There was a stigma attached to it when I was in high school, and I graduated in 1993.
How have you seen technology come into this industry?
In our industry,
Yeah.
oh, there's a lot of technology. We have some pretty sophisticated equipment we use now to better diagnose like vibration analysis and bearings. We have load analyzers that we use on machines to measure the actual tonnage that the machine is putting out, to measure the force on the press frame, stuff like that.
It's getting a lot more electrical, isn't it?
Yeah, no, like the dynamic load cells, the ones that we use, yeah, they run off a 9-volt battery, but um, they're manufactured in Ohio, and they equate the force that is compressed on them with an electrical signal, and they're calibrated and they come certified and everything else, and it tells you what the force that you're putting out onto that cell is. So that's what the press frame is feeling, and then from there, we can put a monitor on the machine so that when the customer goes and puts their tooling in, they know how hard they're hitting their tooling. The control tells it. So we've got some pretty sophisticated controls we put on, as well as, I mean, we use heat thermometers, laser thermometers and stuff like that to check bearing temperatures and motor temperatures, stuff like that. We've got instruments to measure motor load and motor RPM and stuff like that. So technology's come a long way from 1940 when or 1930 when guys were doing this stuff, and the engineers were doing the best math that they could do, and the mechanics were putting it together to what they had there, but they didn't have the equipment. So technology's come a long way for us, and we're able to take this machine that say was built in 1950. Okay, it's an old press. Okay, but it's got a real solid frame on it and everything, and the customer's had it forever. And we upgrade that with this sophisticated control that now tells him when he turns the machine on and he starts the motor, what his motor current is, okay, and how his motor is performing on that machine via the current RPM, et cetera. And then we can go and we can put a tonnage monitor on there, and we can say, okay, now not only are we measuring how much force you're putting out in this job, but we've got a waveform pack that will literally show us where in the stroke of the press that peak tonnage is happening and where the reverse load is happening, so they can see what's happening within the tool. And the nice thing about that is it helps the tool maker down the road when they run tryout on this brand new tool. And let's say, for example, it runs at 105 ton. And 7 weeks later, we're running the same job, same material. We've checked the material, and we're running 130 ton on this. It's probably time to sharpen the tool. So now let's look at the trends, because we've got data on it, because that same control is going to record that data and store it. When did it start spiking? Well, 2 weeks ago, it actually started. Okay, so we got a 5-week window that we can run at this volume, and then we need to sharpen the tool. Now we can plan for it, and now it's not downtime, it's planned. So now we're not losing money because we can schedule around it. So that technology helps our industry greatly. And like I said, anything that we can do to keep the customer up and running, they're going to call us back, because we're saving them the downtime. Nothing's more expensive than downtime. That is the most expensive thing in any industry. So technology's come a long way for what we do. And there's some other really neat tools we use out there that just they're more readily available. We use hydraulic pullers instead of mechanical pullers, and hydraulic torque multipliers and stuff like that. So you can take those big bolts and get them tight without putting a 9-foot pipe on stuff and pulling on it physically. We can use hydraulic force to do that. So technology's come a long way in our industry.
Do you think you'll ever be replaced by robots?
That's going to be one hell of a robot. That's going to be one hell of a robot. You look at the robots that are out there. I mean, you can have a robot that can fix the robot, because right now people are fixing the robots. You know, I had a close family member make a big issue about the fact that one of the big three auto manufacturers was going to start replacing people with robots, and I laughed. And he said, "Well, it's horrible. They're replacing people. They're taking away people's jobs." I said, "No, because the individual that was an assembly line worker could get educated on how to maintain that robot and will still have a job. So it's a matter of perspective. Did the robot take my job, or did the robot force me to learn something so that I can be better?"
Give you a new opportunity.
Exactly. One door closes, another one opens, right? So, and some people might go, "Oh, that's a bunch of crap, blah blah blah." But that's the reality. You have to adapt, right? You can't be a tree. You got to be able to adapt. You can't just be stuck right here. You got to be able to move. So, do I think our industry will be replaced by robots? Well, I mean, again, perspective. We've come a long way with CNC, so computer numeric control, but somebody has to program that. So you can have a robot program the robot, because, I mean, until you got your AI somewhere up here where it can really think for itself, and quite honestly, I'll take the Pepsi challenge with it. I think I can outwork a robot. I really do.
Yeah.
So,
is there anything else that you want to talk about your industry?
I would just say that, as far as our industry, the younger guys, we need them, and it's a great opportunity to work on some really cool stuff and to have a fulfilling and rewarding career where you know that you can take this raw piece of metal and make this part and fit this part and make this machine do what someone intended it to do, so that America can keep running. And on a small scale, we keep America running. And I think every trade does. So if this trade isn't for you, whether it's just not appealing, there's probably a trade out there for the individual. And I think that that's the most important thing, is that we need to keep the trades running, because the trades keep America running.
Thank you to Brandon and Unique Machine Repair for taking the time to do this. Please let me know what you think down below. And if you or anyone else is interested in joining on this podcast, my email is in the description. Thank you.